Hello, and welcome to some more normal Hoi 4 content. In today's video, we're going and playing the nation that I was recommended recently, Kaza Free State. It's apparently one, just very wholesome, but two, has a lot of reading, a lot of lore, a lot of things going on, that events. So let's check it out. First, of course, we gotta go through the welcome screen. The Kaza Free State, the haven of the oppressed. The Kaza Free State was born in 752, in the wake of the vicious revolt on the Carthaginian slave ship Davash. Aware of the fate that awaited them if they kept heading towards their destination, the Zebrica, Akiku, managed to organize the slaves and turn the ship north. In the end, they landed on the southern islands of the kingdom Wittenland. Even though the region had recently fallen into anarchy, settling among the islands there, the refugees not only survived, but thrived, developing their own brand of democracy, where their chosen first commander was given absolute power, as well as surviving thanks to equal parts farming and fishing, raids against the local pirates, as well as aid from the Macawean Republic. A chance encounters between the refugees and the Macawean patrol ship had laid the groundwork for an alliance that would last for centuries, where Macawea realized that every weapon and escaped slave they shipped north would be turned against the pirates that plagued them. This created a strange harmony where Macawea found an ally that in return to economic and military assistance would gladly fight against the scourge of piracy. The fragile balance was shattered in 872 when the Order of Apinicus launched a crusade against the unruly coastline to bring it under control of the Griffonian Empire. The first commander of the time, Senora Pon, acted decisively to ensure people's safety, leading them towards the pirate stronghold of Seguro. She managed to capture it through a combination of audacity and skill, and make the area a rallying point for whoever fled the Order's scourge. In the end, Senora Pon led a massive force of zebras, ponies, and griffins against the Crusaders, meeting them in the Battle of Eburon. The price was high and the battle horrific, but when the dust settled, these disparate races had bled and died for each other, creating a legacy that would last forever, as Senora Pon declared that whether descendant from a slave or refugee, all those bereft of their homes are welcome in Kaza. This inclusive nature stuck, and ever since that day, Kaza Free State became a sanctuary on the southern shores of Griffonia. Lately, this ideal has become more tested than ever before, as the Pentarchy of the Barid rises in the north, the raiders in Osterlands face political upheaval, and the free towns of Griffiths seem ready to spin out of control. The need for the Free State to stand taller than ever shines clearly in the darkness of the modern era. Beautiful. We have Mansu Erba as our leader. Born second child to a farmer family, Mansu Erba grew in the vast farmlands just outside the capital Seguro, spending her youth exploring nature. Unlike her peers, she and her siblings received basic education from their parents, learning to read and write. As Mansu's elder brother would inherit the farm, she had to find life elsewhere, and so Mansu left for the capital to live and work at a shop owned by relatives. However, this life was not to be, as she enlisted in 950 in a Macawean military program which she graduated from in 954. As a subtenente, her cleverness earned her the attention of the Scapatoria program. For 3 years, she worked as an undercover agent in Osterland. Interesting. Wittenland and Nimbusia, where she helped many escaping to freedom. Mansu proved herself to be a capable operative, and in 957 she rose to fame for her actions in Osterland, as she led the escape of over 100 thralls, despite taking a musket ball to her gut. She received a hero's welcome at Seguro, and an award for her self-sacrifice from the first commander. Sadly, the musket ball that made her a hero also prevented her from ever working as an operative again. At the hospital, the recovering Zebra would meet her future husband, a widowed doctor, and the two would be married 2 years later. In 960, the Advisory Council election saw Mansu chosen as the Counselor of Seguro. While Kaza had continued to prosper in 967, the Berid crisis erupted. As streams of refugees trickled into Kaza, the first commander of the time suffered a stroke. As the crisis worsened, an emergency election in the council saw Mansu Erba narrowly elected as the first commander. She acted swiftly, diverting all funds from industrialization programs and appealing to Makawa for aid. Kaza suffered from it, but it endured. Their founding ideals upheld, as Menza argued to the critics. After all, is a factory worth betraying oneself? Despite the hardships in the following decades, Kaza chose to trust in its timely hero. Under Mansu's leadership, Kaza slowly recovered from the crisis, thanks to extensive literacy and economic reform programs. Now she is known as Avo di Kaza, Kaza's grandmother. We also have the ideals of freedom. We are descendants of slaves and serfs, and we shall never become ones again. We have the Pact of 907. Kaza and Makawias march side by side in service of freedom. We are brothers and sisters in arms, ready to aid one another in the struggles to come. We have the scars of oppression. Memories of slavery live within our national memory. This had led to aversion towards dangerous labor, such as the mines and foundries, which hurts our economy. Exaxia, the Trouble, refers to the ongoing refugee crisis from the northern realm of Berid. These ponies, originally from Wittenland, are near all former serfs, have no real place to go, and take a considerable amount of resource from the Free State's economy. Although they have been granted citizenship, the former serfs lack skills to be truly useful to our industrializing society, and need to be educated before they can truly live free. We have outdated military formation. Even before its formal foundation, Kaza has relied upon citizen militia to form the backbone of national defense. Only a small cadre of officers trained in Makawia's military academy are considered professional soldiers, while a foreign legion, funded by Makawia's, augments the local defense forces. The ad hoc system is not capable of meeting the demands of modern warfare, and recent reforms of Mansu Erba have consolidated smaller regional units into formal garrison forces, forming the first permanent ground forces in Kaza's history. Even then, Kaza, formally at least, has no official standing army, and this limits the government's authority in raising new forces. And we have Operico Liberdeda. Across the world, our agents help the oppressed to escape from tyrannical regimes and live free in Kaza. The idea grants a bonus to population growth per each supremacist and communist country in the world, apart from a few exceptions. Similarly, some non-aligned countries are counted. This bonus is based upon the equation, whatever. However, the larger the bonus is, the larger the disability malice also is. The number is based upon this equation, which I also won't try to understand. Didn't grab one of you, or two of you, sorry. Any generals? Oh, Field Marshal Solana Lobu. Born to a zebra mother and a pony father, Solano Labu was born in interesting times. 2 years after his birth, the Berid crisis erupted in Kaza. Labu's father, a low-level government worker, was swamped with work and didn't get to spend much time with his son, constantly advocating for assisting the refugees, showing charity, and doing everything he could to improve their lives. So Solana spent most of his early years with his mother. She was a proud citizen and instilled in him an admiration for all those doing their part to serve the freedom of Kaza offered to all, including his father. In order to follow on this legacy, Solano signed up for military training in Makawea, hoping to return and serve his nation proudly. After his stint at a Makawean military academy where he performed excellently, he returned to his home of Ililo Roska and became its local militia coordinator. He was happy in his domestic service, but little did he know people higher up had their eyes on him. In 991, Mansu Erba tapped the local commander to begin organizing the national network of militia in Kaza into something that could be called an army. Solano accepted this duty and continues his work to this day. While having little combat experience, he is a master organizer and logistician, and hopes with all his heart that his work can benefit his proud nation in some way. Also, the most important part that I noticed a little earlier, didn't want to say yet. His father is very proud of him. Aww. I'm glad. Until that is, she took a vacation, is down there, I just noted. General Milti Vispo. Amilte's life followed the path of many from rural Wingbardi before the collapse of the empire. Her family had been farmers and soldiers for generations, scraping out a living on their homestead. Her father had few sympathies for the imperial monarchy, and so when the Wingbardi broke away, they rejoiced, and patriotism among them and the other residents of their small village was high. Then came the backlash. Wingbardi's economic prosperity began to slip, and the nation began to slip into darker times. And so, with its promises of good pay and food, Amelti decided to join up with the army. Her basic training was relatively uneventful, but then came the year 985. Amaltia was nearby when the first skirmishes of the Falkor War began, and her unit saw some of the harshest fighting of the war. It was around this time when Amaltia became disillusioned with these wars of monarchs' claims in pursuit of glory and prestige. Because of this, when the war ended, she retired from the military, by now a relatively well-decorated officer, and with that, she thought she would live her life out in peace with her siblings of their family farm, until, that is, she took a vacation. Amaltia was recruited by the Wingbardian military to go on a diplomatic mission to the islands of Esteron. While there, a visit to a bar turned dangerous when she began to drunkenly rant about her hatred for the monarchy, after which she knew she couldn't go back. Luckily, there was a fly on the wall at that bar that night. An operative of Kaza's Scaparterio, or Scapatoria program, visited her room that night and made her an offer. Get out now and use your experience to fight for something new, something greater, a nation of creatures striving together for democracy. And see, Stein dried up. So just from the name of this is a reference to the Polish bear that technically fought in World War II, Wojtek. I don't actually know how to pronounce their name, but I know the reference. But depending from where in the world does one hail, bears are either simple animals or a race of arrogant warriors. There are exceptions, of course, but Wojtek is unique even among those. Little is known of his past, and the bear himself is unwilling to tell. This and countless rumors have turned Wojtek into somewhat of a pseudo-mythical figure. That is known as Wojtek is a griffinous brown bear, species hunted by Ophiuchus knights for sport. When he was but a cub, Wojtek lost his mother to Ophiuchus hunters, and would have been slain himself, but was saved by a griffin partisan from Kaza. This band of guerrillas adopted the bear, giving him the name Wojtek. However, during an engagement, the bear was separated from the unit. Oh no! Years later, Griffin refugees in Kaza would start telling strange stories of a bear who would protect the Griffinists fleeing the free towns. Similar tales would come from partisans who claimed the great Yersin was slaying their enemies with a cannon it wielded as it was a mere rifle. That's amazing. The leadership of Kaza would remain skeptical, however, until the so-called Liberator Bear himself arrived in Kaza one day. He introduced himself as Wojtek and pledged to fight for the Kaza Free State in order to help liberating the Griffisons, his nation, and saving the brown bears, his species. While initially reluctantly accepted into the Kazan military as a private, Wojtek was quickly promoted into the position of corporal, and eventually into the ranks of generals. Due to his physical ability, mental fortitude, and unexpected expertise in artillery, and surprisingly for such a predator, great care of soldiers serving under him, Wojtek now serves as one of the lesser unifying figures of Griffisons in Kaza, who now believe that liberation of their homeland is at claw, as even its nature is turning against its oppressors. Aww. Bearer of artillery, bearer, and he never drops a crate, which is what they use the bear for in World War II. Oh my goodness, that's so cute. Oh my goodness, this nation is amazing. Okay, and there is one for there is a landmark. Twinkle Sprinkles, a bridge guide to the place of the world, 1007 ED. The haven of freedom. A long history paves the road to the modern city of Seguro. Originally a stronghold of the old kingdom Wittenland in the south, it was overrun by pirates when Wittenland's influence in the coastal region faded, and became a center of criminals who launched raids against any ships passing by. This ended in 875 when Seguro drove out the pirates, and from Theon, the city found itself as the capital of the newly found Kaza Free State. However, in 905, an invasion by Osterland razed and looted the city, leaving it as a broken husk, with its ancient buildings left as nothing but rubble. Modern-day Seguro is an odd combination of old and modern ways born from its past. While the ancient walls still ceremonially mark the inner and outer city, in reality, the city has far extended outwards from its original confinements. As the administrative and judicial capital, it houses the council hall, where the advisory council, the highest governing body in Kaza, gathers for meetings. This building also acts as the official residence of the first commander. The old central plaza, where once the pirates had sold their loot and slaves, is now dominated by a large statue dedicated to Seguro and her band, who not only united Kaza but defended Seguro to their death against the Osterland invasion. Nearby to this park rises many estates held by the rich, built in 910s during the reconstruction of the capital of the age of Machiavellian architects. These buildings combine elements of the old Wittenlandic buildings with the more luxurious style from the old from Machiavelli. Amongst these luxurious boulevards also lay many financial institutions and trade corporations specialized in shipping products between Zebrica and Griffonia. Past them lay the great harbor, where each day many ships dock to or depart to brave the seas. Recent modernization efforts have led to the old harbor adopting steam cranes and railways to move the cargo. Nearby rise many apartment complexes where many laborers dwell, who work within the city in various menial tasks. Now manufacturing complexes can also be found by the coast, mainly owned by Machiavellian corporations or a few enterprising Kazans. However, with each passing day, these factories are expanding as the state continues to pour money into industrialization schemes. However, there's a grim side to the otherwise shining city. In its further outskirts, over the old war border, a sprawling maze of shabby buildings and slums spreads out into the inland. Those living there had arrived to the capital seeking for work and better life, but have ended up trapped in the dangerous, filthy living space. For many years, there has been lobbying and consistent efforts to alleviate the situation, but so far these actions have not amounted to much, leading to some civil strife in the local politics. That is the first sad thing I have heard about this nation, well, besides them starting as slaves. Oh my goodness, there's a history bar? Okay, we're gonna be here for a little while. I think this might be the first nation I don't even get to the focus tree in the first episode. With this much lore? It might just happen. This is just the same thing as that event. Kaza Free State has long and complicated history that is defined not simply the state, but the people themselves. It is defined by a continued struggle against tyranny and fighting for freedom. Sacred cause. Note from the Canterlot Library concerning the remembrance of Soka. Kaza's people are taught their history through the remembrance of Soka. It is a long and winding tale that recounts their past, being the D-Vash slave revolts at the behest of their national hero, Akiku Soka. They are taught not only this, but it is created in the same sense as you would expect a song or poem in verse. The residents of Kaza do not only know the words, but know how to sing it. Every citizen is taught this, and the remembrance of Soka is constantly having things suggested to be added to it. Only when the Council of Elders residing in the Ila Roska decrees a new verse is something officially added. Most recent example of this was the introduction of Chapter 30 in 1003, originally written and submitted to the famed poet Eltu Kaza. While citizens are not officially required to memorize it, it is required to pass basic history schooling within the realm of Kaza. It is also the best introduction for the foreigners to learn Kaza's history as told by the Kazans. The history itself is only written down in a single place, on clay tablets, displayed at the Grand Remembrance Hall, housed inside the marooned Davash in Ilhaz Raska's harbor. From there it is recounted to children and adults by oral tradition. Only those who can repeat the remembrance from memory are allowed to become leaders of Kaza. Readers beware, treat the remembrance of Ikuka as a form of both history and myth, for only those present during those times know what the truth is behind this recorded history. Furthermore, this is roughly translated version, understanding that it is not officially spoken nor written anywhere in Polish. This is simply what our Diplomats and Traditions Bureau has managed to create for you to read. Signed, Lecturer Top Marks. The Vash and the Tale of Akiku. Remembrance of Soka, Chapter 1, verses 1 through 14. Upon the open ocean so vast did the vessel ride called Davash. Its purpose was truly something revile, for within its holds did slaves endure a trial. The whips cracked but one would not break, Akiku, his name spoken in desperate whispers, Akiku. Set to be executed upon a block upon the morning dew, the slave said no, and rose with voice of a coo. Slavers' blood ran into the blue, Akiku Soko, we raise our voices, thanks to you. With a single act of righteous defiance, we would forge a lifelong alliance. Sing it all out loud so the world may know of our freedom earned through blood, sacrifice, and the work our hooves sow. Thank you, Akiku. The Land Where Slaves Smile. Remembrance of Soko. Chapter 4, 7 through 21. Taught how to properly sail and repair a ship, we thanked those of Maquia as we set on our trip. Without Mawika, we would long gone, lost to the waves and wind's brawn. Just as the sun's beauty is lost from dusk to dawn, with fish and kelp we caught. The wind steered us to what we sought, a land to call our own as we tied the rope knot. It is there we reminded upon a map that we were but a dot. There we were, hardened and prepared to fight for our lot. The Davash arrived upon the shores of Kaza haste, teaching us it is not the tool, but those who use it that determine a place. But hooves upon a dry land as we took to prepare for our new space, we were not sure of anything save our freedom's grace, a home they were ready to embrace. Safe at last. Remembrance of Soka, Chapter 6, verses 2 through 24. The year was 753, and the conditions were not something we could not prepare. The winter so harsh that not hoped the land would be fair. The Lavash, damaged as it was our only shelter to hold ourselves together. Akiku Soka sought to teach each and every one hoof, claw, fur, and feather. Though all of this, we found our lives full of fight in the cold weather. We had not realized this land would be so difficult, freedom and so tenacious. Through our leaders' words, our different people's wisdom, we found solace. Not just solace would do, but sustenance and subsistence brought us through the awfulness. With the spring thaw came Akiku's resolve. He would not allow our people to be fractured and dissolved. Despite the starvations, creatures of death, and bitter cold, together we found ourselves unbreakable and bold. With each other, regardless of origins, we could face anything to unfold. With this new song, our hearts rose to the call, our bonds now paroled. For our people were something new, something truly different to behold. Makawean received our news, our signal of our household. With that came hundreds of laborers, our turn to become saviors. Hundreds of recently freed alive, seeking sanctuary. We turns none away, we wished only to be a golden masonry, a true place for all those harmed by war, greed, and chains. Kaza was to become a place where they could all overcome their pains we must never forget, lest our nation wanes. Refuge for our new beginnings. A storm of fire and steel. Remembrance of Soka. Chapter 9, verses 8 through 27. A storm of fire and steel marched towards our deck. The stage was set, the griffin simply would not respect. Our nation was now beset with conflict, knights ordered to come tame us, just another word for enslave. Our nation would not cave, so nor upon rose our banner. She descended of Akinu, who became the first commander. With sticks of fire and weapons of steel they marched, with their armor stopped, their spears and blades, while there were left our wounded scorched. A crisis of face fell upon our ground, morals shattered by these conquerors' talons. that sought to push us around. This was our first test against Griffonia's best. We were so very pressed, yet our resolve did not break when stressed. We accepted the sacrifice we must make to corner these knights and force them to break. Deep in the forested mountains we placed a lure. In their eagerness for victory, a trap was askew. Nearly to the last the knights fought and died, so few were there they to remain, our resolve overcoming their pride. Despite Sonora's offer to parley, they would not stop and break our barley. With the heavy heart and great burden, we traded their lives for ours. Our solace is ending agony to be interested. At the hill of ebony, Kaza was made. Sonora's Stand, Remembrance of Soka, Chapter 13, verses 1 through 43. The Knights of Griffonia were not the only threats we would face, for upon the shores of Kaza laid another problem with the race. Unicorns on the north and deer sternland to the east are prepared their mace. Both seek to return us to the chains we refuse to embrace. Though now a new generation did not know this grace, they had yet to have their spirits put to the flames to keep their birthplace. Nor upon, now old and frail, picked up their banner without hesitation. 107 answered a call to their nation. They felt such a great shame upon seeing this frustration, they painted their armor black, crest of broken chains emboldened upon their breasts. In the new year of 905, the soldier Kaza, 107 in number, rose to face this foul pest. They would face an army of 40,000, an army of the century to our behest. Sonora upon knew none could stop them, not without all of Kaza to protest. With the masterful mountains to the east and forsaken march to the west, the Black Watch would face down the betrayer. An instrument of Zebrica, ancient and old, resounded from a player. Sonora knew the cost of this and did not back down nor give ground. On this day, Auster land would know our power renowned. Again and again, the Austerlands more elite would charge, only to have their blood run into the river like a scourge. With the single swing of her sword, Sonora slew a helmed deer, showing her orders to those both far and near. Austerland could only watch in horror as the warriors of Kaza hammered them into mortar. The ever-growing wall of bodies turned the river into more blood than water. 17 the number of days the didgeridoo blew. 17 the number of days Sonora and her rabble came through. No victory could be won, not with so very few, but upon Sonora's honor, the deer would fear her name. They would come to fear Kaza's flame. Griffin, zebra, pony, and even harpy would not be tame. This sacrifice would not go unheard. Half of Austerland's army would be laid lame. 3 scholars did escape, recording the tale and cheering our warriors' acclaim. News of the last stand woke deep within our new generation, a flame from within the bones of their ancestral bastion. Together the horns of rage sounded, and from Sonora's sacrifice a coalition. Makawea sent us aid. We were no longer zebra, griffin, pony, nor changeling partisan. On that day, our people became Kaza in body, mind, and soul. Regardless of our claw, hoof, wing, horn, or feather, we all had just but one goal, but to see any slaver expelled from our shore. It was their finest hour. And we'll look at the last events in the next episode. I guess that's the reason for you to check it out, eh? But yeah, first time I've ever played through a nation and not even gotten to the focus tree or setting up my nation in the first episode. Just that much lore. This is so awesome. I'm loving the lore of this nation. I'm loving how many events, how many things I can do with it. It's so cool. I can't wait for the next time. And speaking of that, if you enjoyed, like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell button. And as always, peace.